up, guys? Back for another episode of Corey's Garage. So you're probably asking what's going on here. Well, as you guys know, a couple weeks ago we went to Tucson, Arizona for the duct tape drags. And needless to say, I left with a way different car than what I came home with. And I will say it was worth every mile. I think we've done a little bit under 2,500 mile round trip. Not once did the car leave us stranded, where it just absolutely wouldn't work. It just wouldn't move, you know what I mean? We'll get into that here in a little bit. But yeah, the car ran pretty good. It is a little bit different, kind of daunting, you know, driving it that far and trying to beat on and race it like you would if you didn't have anything, you know, on your mind or anything like that. But if that makes any sense. But yeah, let's go over everything that's wrong with this car now that we've gotten back. And it's not good, but it's not as bad as you think. So let's check it out. So one of the first issues we had, we made it from Tulsa to Yukon, Oklahoma. And right on I-40, we stopped for our first gas stop. And as Brandon was pumping gas, I could smell fuel and I saw stuff running out on the ground. Well, on these cars, they've got a neat way to put gas. You got to fold down the gas or the license plate and all that kind of stuff. But what happened is there's a rubber hose that connects. You can see it right there, the new one. And if you watched on the other video, you saw. But, you know, that's been in here roughly about 8 years. And the old rubber we're getting nowadays is just not any good. It doesn't last. And it rotted out. So what we did, we went to Napa and got a new piece of hose, which was not cheap, and fixed that. That was the first thing. The second thing that happened was we made it about another 30-40 miles to stop and use the restroom, and I was going to grab something out of the trunk, and the trunk lock broke. So this trunk lock got changed back in like 2015. You know, it was the original one, and we changed it. Well, it just fell apart. It's that old pop metal, overseas kind of stuff, not very good. So that was our second hurdle, that we had to take the back seat out, jack around, and finally get it where it would come loose, luckily, and get it apart where we could use a screwdriver to open it. And then we made it to Amarillo and got the car, you know, got the parts. We got a new gas cap because we also lost the gas cap after fixing the hose, and we got that stuff fixed. The next issue was we started smelling rear end grease, and right before we took off on the trip, we did the clutch, we changed all the fluids, and we may have overfilled the 9-inch in it because the fill level on it is probably not the same, because this has a different center section in it that probably has a different height. And it was a little bit low, but we pumped another quart in it. Well, I think we overfilled it, and I think it just started leaking out of the pinion. And then also when we done the filler neck on it, Brandon went ahead and tightened, because we noticed it started leaking. All of the center section bolts were just not very tight. He retightened it. I think it's just a combination of all that stuff. Again, I put this Curry 9-inch in it 2015, 2016, so it's been in there for a minute. So another thing that's been a problem since day one is with the EFI setup I've got on this car. It's made by Phytech. It's the 7002 kit that they've got. It was one of the first few aftermarket kits that they had for this that came out that was relatively affordable. It was about $2,000. Again, this has been on here since 2016. This has the transmission control, that for the automatic, which I started with a 60 and then went to the Tremec 5-speed in this and everything. But the problem is this car will go from idling at like 750 to going to 1,500 RPMs for no reason. Well, we cleaned the IAC on it. We did a little bit of everything. And I have to say, taking Brandon with me, he's really good at some of this late model stuff and everything. He went through, no matter what you put into the handheld on this to try to program it and reset it, it will not take nothing that you give it. You know, and the only person that could actually get it to work was Brandon at Strong Speedworks. And it still is a little bit iffy on, it's just hard to work with. There's not much to do. It's like the Oregon Trail of EFI setups. So there was that issue. So as we're driving, things are getting, you know, car's running good, like I said, running good, but it's getting slowly and slowly or hard to start. The hot start is like it's cranking forever. Now, previous time it hasn't done this, and this car, you know, I've drove it 500 miles each way, 600 miles each way, you know, 1,000-mile round trip. This is my first trip to drive where it's over 1,000 miles each way. I mean, we're running this car 10 hours, 11 hours, just straight through. And I noticed as the thing, and we're getting into hot weather too. Like we're getting into 95, 100 degree weather. The car's just getting hard to start. So Brandon's checking things and everything. He's like, this doesn't make any sense. Well, finally, as we got down into, right before we passed through Albuquerque, we were about, 70 miles from Gallup. We took, I think it's Highway 117 to take the scenic route. And we started going down through there, but I noticed the car, like this thing in fourth and fifth gear pulls like a freight train. Like you just rest your foot on the gas and you're going 80 miles an hour. But I noticed it was getting to where I was like, this car is losing power. And gradually it's going down and down and down. Well, as we're getting into the middle of nowhere, this car's barely running. We get out, we check fuel pressure. This thing needs 60 pounds of pressure to run. We have like 35 pounds. And then when you give it throttle, it just drops. And that's with it on the side of the road, not, doing anything, like no load, nothing like that. So now we're getting somewhere. We're figuring out what's going on. Now this had the Aeromotive fuel tank, Aeromotive pump, all the setup. I bought the whole tank and just put it in, never opened it up. So I started thinking that little rubber piece between the fuel pump and the sending unit maybe has gotten rotten like all the other hoses that haven't lasted, and it's bleeding pressure out that way. Luckily, God bless Brandon, man. He's a great guy to take with you. He really thinks ahead where a lot of times it gets scrambled up in here. He brought an extra fuel pump, which absolutely saved this whole trip. So kudos to him for thinking ahead on that. Brought another fuel pump. We got to a point where the car just would hardly run. We could hardly get it started. So we pulled over in a little town. I'll put it up here. I can't remember exactly what town it was, but it's still in New Mexico. And we decided we need to drop this tank and see what's going on. So we dropped the tank. Sure enough, the hose wasn't rotted out. And we're thinking maybe the check valve in the pump or something's bad. So we switch fuel pumps, get the car fired up. Man, we got 60 pounds of pressure. Everything's rocking and rolling. On where we go. So the guy that let us do the work here on that property, awesome guy. Made some good friends and everything. Definitely a good contact when we roll back through there again. So now we're 240 miles from Tucson. We've got a motel room. We camped the night before in New Mexico. We're tired, we're dirty, we need to get rolling. Well, it's 8:30 at night and we have to be there by midnight for check-in, or otherwise we lose our room. We went through Globe, Arizona, went through all the switchbacks, some of the awesome, most off-road, like not off-road, but like road coursing stuff I've probably ever done. I've been through there before in a newer car. But the next thing, and it's totally my fault, is I'll show you. So this Chevelle has the F41 big block springs in it. As you know, this car used to have a big block Chevrolet in it. Well, when I did the LS swap, we knocked about, I would say at least over 200 pounds off the nose of this car. I did not realign the tires. Well, I've got a lot of mileage on it, but on this trip, you can see it's definitely chewed the outside of the tires up. Again, my fault for not getting the proper alignment, and this one especially is cut, as you can see. And then now, with me running 55 miles an hour around these corners, I have basically smoked the brakes on this car. Like, they are squeaking like, a junk car, like they're wore down. So, and mind you, these brakes have been on there. I converted this car to four-wheel disc back in 2015. So, and I've never done anything with them. So the brakes are smoked on this thing. They need to be done. The front tires, I wouldn't say they're ruined. Instead of the 255/60 on the 8-inch front rim, I want to go to a 7 and do a 215/70 on the front. Get that big and little muscle car thing going. So I need to have it aligned. I don't know if I was thinking about changing the springs and lowering it, but I just like that rake that this car's got. So I'm just going to probably leave the springs in it, realign it. I've got all the steering components I want to change and get it aligned, and then change the wheels and go to the skinnier, taller front tire to match the rear. And then one more thing. And if you go in the older video, you notice how I said, man, it seemed like the car's sitting lower on the left side than it is the right. Well, this car has a cool spring suspension. There's no leaf springs on this thing. Well, as with the Curry Ford 9-inch I put in this car in 2015, I put airbags on the back to help, because I would run like, 15 pounds in the right one and like 4 pounds in the left one. And that would, get the anti-roll going, get this car straightened up. Because I'm going to put a picture up here. I'll show you what it did before when I didn't have that. And it was snatching the front wheels. I'd get like, with the big block, I'd get like, you know, 7 inches of height of the left front wheel and like an inch of the right front wheel on the 60 foot. And this thing cut like 1.560s, pretty decent, you know. And so one of the bags on the left side, we found out when we went to the Rodnock Ranch guys' campsite to use their air compressor, the bag's got a hole in it. So we had that going, which had totally like messed up how the car transferred weight. It just was it wasn't good for drag racing. So I've got to fix that. So really I've got a list of things. That's not the car's fault. It's the lack of maintenance, and it's just what happens after, you know, you've used this car for the last 8 years. I've used it as a daily driver. Like when I first did this LS swap, I had a 2,500 3/4 ton pickup and this. And I used this, my child was born. This was, you know, the truck gets 10 miles a gallon. This car was getting 25 without a cam. You know what I was driving all the time. This was my daily driver. This is what I was using. So, like, it's time to do some maintenance, you know. And it comes in handy because right now, I mean, once I get this floorboard debacle figured out of how I'm going to get the parts to the house for the Scout, I'm ready to start working on it. So, but I'm going to start with, one more thing I forgot. And most important, and this is a big deal and it's scary, is as we were driving back, ever since we pulled that fuel tank out, I had noticed I'd broke a few like clamps on the fuel lines and stuff, and we're tired and we're just ready to get rolling. Well, I noticed ever since then, and even at the track, but it was more so when we left the track and we got going, we could smell raw fuel. And then I noticed the air-fuel ratio, you know, usually it tracks within a little bit, but it's going everywhere from 17 to 11, back and forth. And we're smelling raw fuel, and the car is like, on our next tank of gas, we've went from 22 miles to the gallon to getting like 12 miles a gallon. It's getting worse. And the car's not running real good. Like, it's just, I don't know, it's so weird. So he went through trying to adjust stuff, and finally we gave up. We pulled over, we're losing fuel pressure again. We're like, gosh, damn it. Holy crap, what's going on here? Well, we keep driving, and finally we decide we're just gonna send it all night. We're gonna try to make it home because I think the ECU, something's going on. We gotta get this thing home and get it figured out. I'm gonna show you what's wrong here. So I want you guys to pay attention. Look right in. Did you see it? Or did it happen? No, not yet. So we're under this fine machine now, and I'm going to show you, if I can keep the light from getting in our way, we have got right there, you can see, we got us a hole, baby. I don't know if you can see it or not, but try to get my light straight. But yeah, we got us a hole. It's not good. Could have been very, very dangerous. So I'm going to get the stuff and build some new fuel lines. Yeah, right there. So we've been spraying fuel for a while, and that could be the right reason why. Now, I don't think it's why the first fuel pump messed up, but I think it's why coming back we were smelling that fuel really bad, because their fuel ratio problem happened on the way back. It started getting out of control, and then at the racetrack, this thing was boogie woogieing, man. This car hauls butt, man. So that leads to the conclusion of this story here. So what's next for the old car? Well, we're gonna have to put some new fuel lines on it, try to get our fuel system under control, and then we're going to see if we can get the car to run correctly. And that's the biggest challenge I see. Like, it seems weird that all of a sudden it would quit working right when it's been working fine for all these years. However, the idle issue, it's been a problem since day one. I could probably live with that. But we'll start with the fuel lines. If we can get the thing to run properly, I think I'm going to change the front wheels to a 7-inch wide and go from the 255/60 to a 215/70, because I want that kind of big and little look again. Because the car, I thought it'd make it handle better. It don't handle any better. It still handles like a wheelbarrow. So we can scratch that idea, but it needs a front end alignment. I actually have all the tie rod ends, pitman arm, the whole 9 yards. I'm gonna change all the steering on it. We'll get an alignment done and then go from there. And the very last thing is probably put the correct clutch in it. That way I can, you know, rip gears in that thing. So that's gonna be it for right now. I've still got, man, I got to build this chicken coop and finish the other half of that roof. So we'll be sprinkling in car stuff here and there. I'll tell you a couple things are coming up. We're gonna work on this Monte Carlo and get some stuff lined out on it. And then we're going to, I've got the gaskets for the 345. We're going to get that, and I'm probably gonna drag the Scout over here so I can put the motor in it and everything. So that's some stuff you can look forward to. But I think that's it. So if you guys like, subscribe, you know, keep following the channel. Like I said, I've got a lot of other important stuff that's come up, and like I've slowed down on some of my video and everything, and then like the work schedule and all that stuff. So yeah, it's just life. It's the way it goes. But I do got some cool surprises, and there's actually a surprise right there you guys don't know about yet, but you're gonna see it pretty quick, and I'm pretty stoked about it. It's like, you know, yeah, I'll explain it to you. But yeah, thanks guys.